I am continuing where we left off from the first video tutorial titled Room 101. In this tutorial, I will be expanding our small room by adding an outdoor area with a sky. I have enclosed a copy of the Room 101.map file with this download. In order to conserve time on this video, I must leave out some of the details using SoF2 Radiant. You should explore the program further on your own time to become more familiar with it. Let's begin by opening our last map, Room 101.map in SoF2 Radiant. Once open and within view, open your common texture set located at the textures menu at the top. You may want to pause this video while they load. Sometimes when loading your textures, the entity window will pop up as you see it did here. Just close this window by hitting the N key on the keyboard since there is no reason for it to be open. Move your camera to a better viewpoint of the area around the room where we will be building. The camera is easily moved using the arrow keys, the D and C keys, the comma and the period keys, and the A and Z keys. Zoom the gridded area out so that you can see more of the work area by hitting the Insert and Delete keys. As I have said before, committing the shortcut keys of this program to memory, or any program that you use frequently, can greatly increase your speed and abilities. You can find a list of available shortcuts for SoF2 Radiant within the Help menu at the top of the program window. I will now select a better texture for our ground outside of the room already built. I plan on turning our room into a garage, so the appropriate texture here is asphalt. Select the texture and begin drawing out the ground from the gridded area as I am doing. Many paved driveways extend past the garage itself, so I will put some ground out to the left. Then I will pull the right side out as part of the drive up to the entrance of the garage. Now that the first brush is sized to my liking, I will position the height to the same level as the garage floor. You can see in the Z window that it is above the 0 grid mark where our garage floor is now. Deselect this brush by hitting the Escape key, and we will continue adding more to the driveway. A small area here behind the wall of the garage would be nice to hide behind. After this brush is drawn, hit the Escape key to deselect it and move on to the next. I will continue the drive up of the driveway down the side of the building, and that should be enough area for us to work with for the sake of this tutorial. Now that we have the floors completed, we need some walls. Select a new texture for the walls that are going to surround this driveway. The alley brick texture should work just fine. Begin to draw out your walls outside of the pavement that we just created. Don't worry about the corners of the walls where they should meet. We will miter those edges later after we have them all in place. Right now, just rough out the walls so that they approximate the correct size. Remember to adjust the height of the walls before moving on to the next. I pulled the wall up from the Z window to the 128 grid mark. That would be just enough to keep our player within the walls without making it overly difficult to see outside of the lot. To speed things along, this is a good time to play with the copy feature of the editor. By hitting the spacebar, the selected brush, which happens to be our wall, will be duplicated. We just have to drag that wall over to the other spot where we need it and resize the length. After the 3 horizontal walls are done, copy the last brush again with the spacebar. We will then rotate the brush for the vertical walls with the Z-axis rotate button. After placing this brush, there is only one more wall to construct before moving on. With the walls only roughly in place, we should now go back and finish the corners by mitering them. I will zoom in on the gridded area for a better look at how this is done. Just as we mitered the corners of the room in the previous video, we will select the brush we want to miter and hit the E key to manipulate its edges. Pull one corner in as I do here, and then do the same with the next wall by hitting the Escape key to deselect the first brush and selecting the second by holding down the Shift key and clicking the left mouse button on the brush from within the 3D window. Once you have mitered both ends of this brush, move on to the next until all the walls have been finished. The last wall, you will notice, does not sit flush with the back of the garage. We should resize the pavement and pull that wall into a better position by dragging it from the gridded area with the mouse. Remember that dragging the brush from outside of the selected brush will resize it, while dragging the brush from inside of the selected brush will move it. We also don't have to miter the other end since it is sitting flat on the wall of the building. Let's put a little detail into our map by adding a small ledge to this wall. Start by selecting all the walls from the 3D window. Now hit the spacebar to copy all of these wall brushes and adjust them so that they sit on top of the wall and are only 8 units tall in the Z window. Select the new texture of our ledges, 3 cement, to provide some contrast to the walls and make them stand out more. Next, we will give these ledges a little depth by making them thicker than the walls, just like you would expect in real life. Also, this bit of detail is not so complicated that it will create lag in the game, but it is complex enough to cast nice shadows and give more dimension to the area when we play it in the game. Deselect the brushes and reselect only one. Zoom into the brush for a better view, and then resize the grid area to 4 units, since we don't need the ledge to stick out a full 8 units from the wall. The grid can be adjusted by hitting the left or right brackets on the keyboard, and hitting the left bracket once is all we need. You can see when I pull out one edge of the brush to a larger size, we don't lose the mitered edge. Continue to resize the ledges on all the walls. Let's go ahead and move on to adding a sky. Deselect any brushes and select all of the walls. We will use a copy of these walls to create part of our sky. Once selected, hit the spacebar and move the copies to sit on top of the ledge. The height is a bit taller than we need, and it is good practice not to have more open area in a map than needed. Open area takes up compiling time and adds to the size of the BSP file after it is compiled. Resize the height of these brushes to the 256 grid mark. Before continuing, we should save the work we have done so as not to lose anything. These editors have a habit of crashing at the worst times, and the frustration of losing all your hard work can be avoided with frequent saves. Go to the menu and choose File, Save As. Save this map under the new name of Room 102. Go ahead and open the Skies texture set so that we can choose the sky texture for our map. Once loaded, you can scroll through the skies and see which best represents the level you are trying to create. For the purpose of this tutorial, Col 3 will suit us just fine. It has a nice terrain, which I hope to cover in later tutorials, and also provides a little sunlight to cast some nice shadows in our map. With all the new sky brushes still selected, click the small blue sky texture named Col 3. The other textures of the actual sky are there for the game and helpful when browsing through them. They are not the textures that should actually be used in the map. The textures labeled Sky will create the proper effect that is required for all skies. Deselect the brushes so that we can create the rest of the brushes for the sky. We still need to create the brush that closes in the area over the garage and the ceiling of the map as well. The brush over the garage can be constructed as one solid block. The area inside of that brush will not be compiled in the map since it is solid, and the outer edges will not be taken into account since they sit outside of the map itself. After drawing out the large brush over the garage, be sure to check that it is not sitting inside of the garage, but rather on top of it. This brush can be deselected, and the ceiling brush can be drawn out to fit over the walls. The brush should sit on top of the 256 grid mark where our walls end. I have created 2 brushes that match the shape of our map for the ceiling of our map. Before moving on, let's do some touch-up work on the textures. When I zoom into the corner of the wall section, you may notice that the textures don't exactly match up seamlessly. This is because the origin points of those textures are not the same. This error occurred when we copied our wall and moved it. The brush retained its original texturing even though we moved the brush's location. I am going to go around the area and fix this difference. One method of pasting texture attributes from a selected brush face is by holding down the Control key and clicking the brush face you want to replace with the middle mouse button. This will paste the selected texture to that location and fix the seams that we are having trouble with. Do this with all the walls so that they are all seamless with one another. Afterwards, we will work on the asphalt texture on the ground using this same method. Now that those areas of our map are complete, let's finish with the construction. Our player needs a way to get out of the garage. Select the front of the garage and adjust the height of the wall so that it better represents the entrance to a garage. Next, we need to construct the side walls of this vehicle entrance. Copy the selected brush with the spacebar and resize it as I do along the side of the entrance. Since both ends of this brush are still mitered, we need to zoom in and flatten the one end. Hit the E key and move one of the corners to finish this wall. Hit the spacebar to duplicate this wall and move it to the other side of the entrance. Fix the mitered edge on this wall now with the E key and by moving the edges appropriately. Just as the outside walls needed their textures to be adjusted, so do the garage walls that we just created. I will show you another way to duplicate a texture among several brushes at once. Select the two garage walls on either side of the entrance and click the wall above them with the center mouse button. This will duplicate the top wall texturing to the selected brushes. This is just the opposite of what we did earlier to the outside walls and asphalt. Looking around the area, it seems our work here is done for now. Go ahead and save your level. We can finish up by compiling the map with full viz found in the BSP menu at the top. Wait for the DOS window to do its thing and close, and remember to check the console for any errors that may have occurred during compiling. Now we can test our map in the game. Close SoF2 Radiant and open your Windows Explorer program. Head over to the folder C, SoF2 MPSTK, Base, Maps, where your room 102.bsp file was saved during the compile process. Copy this file and paste it into the folder C, Program Files, Soldier of Fortune 2 Double Helix, Base, Maps. Now run the game Soldier of Fortune 2. When the HUD appears, hit the Escape key to drop down the game console. In the console, type DEVMAP space room 102 and hit the Enter key. Your map should begin to load. Once the game has loaded, you can see how your new sky has been added to make everything feel much larger than it truly is. You can also see some of the shadows created by the sky's lighting effect that was pre-programmed into the sky texture that we selected using shaders. I hope you have enjoyed this video tutorial.